Hey everyone, welcome back to another vinyl record review video. Today I'm reviewing The Great Depression by the band As It Is. The first thing I want to talk about is design of the artwork itself. As you can see, there's a very striking use of reds and blacks on the cover, which is very in keeping with the darker, heavier, almost emo sound of this record. The artwork's actually done by a guy called Butcher Billy, who's very good at capturing this kind of aesthetic and the use of the Ben-Day dots, which is a shading printing technique commonly found in pop art. The back cover features another stunning piece of artwork, which includes the Grim Reaper, which is a reference to the 7th track on the album, and along the bottom you get the track listing. To me, the title of the album is a reference to the real Great Depression of the 30s, with the downward arrow representing a statistic for the falling economy, and in the context of this album is the decline of our mental health. Even the typeface itself draws inspiration from this time period, and in general I really like the art direction of this album. I think they've done a very good job in taking ownership of this concept behind everything, all the songs and the style of music, as well as really driving it through across the entire album visually and sonically. Even the little blue cracks in the ground I think is a nice touch, a nice accent to this very dark colour palette, and to me I think it's a representation of an unstable mind. This is a gatefold sleeve which houses a double LP with expanded artwork inside. I really like the fact that they've carried on with this very dark kind of colour scheme, but with a good use of white text on black background with red headings which really make them stand out and is again keeping with the theme of the album in general. Unfortunately, there isn't any additional artwork or booklets because all of it's contained within the gatefold itself, apart from the fact that there's this very crappy paper sleeve which I really wish everybody stops doing. I know it's not necessarily the band's fault, it's more the manufacturer who's pressing these records who are responsible for this. It's just a huge stark contrast in comparison to their first album, Never Happy, which actually had a protective layer inside. So that's a little bit disappointing. Because this is a double LP, that means there are two vinyl records with half of the album on each one. The copy I have is the red and turquoise version, which is limited to only 1,000 worldwide. There is also a red smoke version, which is only in the US I believe, and there's also one available in transparent orange. The Great Depression is made up of 12 songs, and in a way it's kind of taking the dark elements of OK and turning it into an album, although there is a lot more to it than that. The album is broken down into 3 songs, stylized as 4 chapters, being the 4 stages of grief, in this case denial, anger, bargaining and acceptance. I could probably go on and on about how much I like or dislike about each song, but instead of going through all of them and making this video go on forever, I'm only going to talk about the most notable tracks on each chapter. The Wounded World is a massive song that starts off the album filled with gang vocals that complement Patty's vocal range, supported by really intense guitars and drums that really reinforce the statement that the song is trying to put across, focusing a lot on how society has kind of inadvertently created all these contradictions, double standards. It's about sensationalism and how all of this is kind of making things worse, and at the same time how everybody is in a way responsible for it. Now we're on to part 2. This song's called Boys Don't Cry, The Stigma. It's arguably one of the best songs off the record, mainly because it talks about such a significant concept about toxic masculinity. It tackles this idea that, you know, for some reason the moment men show any kind of a sign of sadness is instantly related to a sign of weakness, and I feel that is a really negative outlook on how men should behave. It's a really terrible way because it prevents people from talking about the things they need to talk about. It prevents people saying how they feel as if, you know, men can't feel anything or men shouldn't feel anything, because suddenly then you're not, you know, seen as a man. As an absolute terrible way to live, and I really wish that ends now. It's also a very blatantly toxic way of living that's been embedded in our culture and probably around the world as a universal thing, because the more it's normalized, the more terrible it's going to become, because nothing's ever going to change out of it, and if no positive change is ever going to happen, it's just going to get worse and become a never-ending cycle, which is partly why I really like the song, because they've actually had the balls to write something like this and say these sort of things, which I wish more bands do, and I'm sure some do, but these guys have dedicated an entire album that's focused around these concepts and really tackles them, and I think people need to know more about it. To me, this is a phenomenal song sonically and lyrically, from the subtle verses which lead into an insanely catchy chorus which everyone's going to sing along at a live show, to a really intense bridge filled with energy breaking back out into one final epic chorus, creating what's arguably one of the most iconic As It Is songs, which easily sum up the album as a whole. To question the answer is like the mellow track of the album. It takes a step back from the rest of the songs, which is actually a quite nice theme I like throughout these kind of records. Now on to part 3, The Reaper. This is a really dramatic song which draws inspirations from the ideas of facing death, the consideration to keep living when facing your own mortality. It's also a song that features Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath, which is a fitting addition to this album. The Truth I'll Never Tell is a really catchy sing-along song, and all I can say is that I absolutely love the lines. I turn around, you're gone again. I know I see you now and then. You say hello and how you been. I say that I'm not better yet. That line just really speaks to me, and I actually love that bit of songwriting. Now on to part 4, Acceptance. The song The Haunting is obviously the track where Ben's vocals really do shine on this album. I only wish we heard him a bit more throughout the entire record itself, mainly because I think he brings quite a good balance to Patty's vocals, which is a bit more prominent in the earlier 2 albums, less so much on this one, but it's great to hear him again, but a shame we didn't hear more of him before he left the band. The Hurt the Hope is the second slower song on the album, with the first 2/3 of it being quite mellow and chilled out, with some soft vocals supported by a beat and a guitar, which then lead to some backing vocals in the chorus, and then in the second half the chorus is cranked up a notch with some drums, which then lead to a very powerful third act with some intense lyrics meant to inspire. The last song on the album, The End, is a track that kind of kicks off almost reminiscent to the likes of Mariana's Trench in a way, but also with a very powerful and intense second half and ending to the song. It's also a song that's almost like an amalgamation of all the styles used throughout the entire album, with some clever songwriting like the lines, but you only heard the words not to hurt, the absence of pain, they don't mean a thing, which really speaks to me and really hits home for me, because in a lot of ways it's kind of like saying the times we were crying for help, no one really understands, and that's a really powerful message, and it's something that we really need to resolve. Overall, I think this is another phenomenal album by As It Is. It's a great way for them to showcase their capabilities of writing much darker, heavier, relevant songs, which tackle the ideas of toxic masculinity, mental health, whether we're doing anything about it which is helping, the ideas that we kind of as a society as a whole has kind of been responsible for screwing everything up, and we really need to wake the fuck up and do something about it before things get too bad. And I love how it does kind of venture into these topics that not a lot of bands are doing, and I'm really glad that they are, and to such a degree. And that does it for my review of The Great Depression by As It Is. If you guys found this video helpful or enjoyed it in some way, then please feel free to drop a like and subscribe to my channel, and maybe follow the various social media that I have, which should be on the screen right now. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.